Hello, welcome back to the Fastest Lap podcast, and as you can see, I am joined by me, myself and I. Everyone's busy, life catches you up, but I promise we will all be reunited for the last Grand Prix of the season. However, you get a Mel special today. Today we are talking all things Brazil Grand Prix. What an incredible race. What an incredible race for Mr. Consistency, for Mr. Saturday, now dubbed Mr. Sunday, George Russell. For those who unfortunately missed it, George scored his first ever, his maiden win in F1 at this week's Brazilian Grand Prix. I'm not particularly a Merc fan, but to see George, who's someone who has worked so hard with some of the toughest cars on the grid, finally have his chance and have his win. It was incredible. It was so overwhelming and it was just absolutely wonderful. So big props to George. He did amazing. It was a phenomenal drive and you can't fault him. It was just brilliant. So yeah, today's episode is going to be a little different. We're going to chat a bit about the Brazilian Grand Prix, but there has been a lot of news stories and a lot of things leading into the Abu Dhabi weekend. So we have a few things to talk through and a few things I'm going to share my opinion on with you guys. So yeah, I want to start with one of the saddest pieces of news personally that broke this week. As someone who watched Mick score his first ever points in F1 at the Silverstone Grand Prix this year, it was extremely sad and extremely disappointing to see that Haas have decided to not renew his contract for 2023. Personally, I don't think this was the right call. You are replacing Mick, someone who had obviously a rookie year and then a year driving a car that was completely different to the previous's. Score a nice collective of points, his first ever points as well in F1, is being replaced by Nico Hülkenberg, who is a 35-year-old man who has had his best finish of, I think it was 6th ever. He's only ever gotten to 6th or 4th, one of the two. But also the fact that he is a driver who has got the longest amount of F1 starts without ever being on the podium, I think that being 10 years. I don't think it was the right call for Haas to make. There must be some sort of incredible sponsor behind Nico for the reason, because I really can't fathom why they decided to not allow Mick to have a seat for next year. It broke my heart. I cried. My dad texted me to tell me, and I was not very happy. The whole grid have been showing their support for Mick on social media. He was saying he was disappointed, but hopefully we will see him return within the next few years. It doesn't seem right. I think Haas will regret their decision with Nico unless, I don't know, there's been some sort of insane, incredible change, meaning he starts bringing performance to the car. But it'll also be interesting to see how Nico and Kevin get along with each other, seeing as we know they've had their fair share of run-ins and incidents.
Just an incident.
In the past. But yeah, Mick has not, unfortunately, got a seat for next year, and we have Hülkenberg back, but not in the way I really wanted it to be, which is a shame. However, there are rumours that Mick could be going to Mercedes as their reserve driver, which I think would be nuts. Not really sure if that's going to benefit him, but I think it would be nice to see him hopefully in a few FP1 sessions next year. Like Antonio has had the chance to do that, so surely Mick should have the same. And while we're on the topic of reserve drivers and third drivers, allegedly there has been some clips that have been released of Helmut Marko confirming or putting interest towards the fact that he would like Daniel to be the third/reserve driver for Red Bull, which I think would be an incredible opportunity for Daniel, because it's also upsetting seeing that Abu Dhabi will be his last race for the foreseeable future. But like Lewis said in a press conference, Alonso came back, Kimi came back, so you never know. Maybe we'll see Daniel back, hopefully, maybe even Vettel back. You never really know. But yeah, as I began with, Mercedes finally got a 1-2 for the season. I was extremely, extremely nervous watching this race, because I was sat here and I was like, surely, I was having discussions with my dad, and I was like, one thing I hope from the bottom of my heart is that they do not let Lewis pass George because team orders. Because one thing I hate are team orders. If Mercedes had done anything to take that win away from George for the sake of Lewis, which there wouldn't really have been any logic anyway, that would have been extremely disappointing. But to be honest, I also wasn't a fan that they had told Lewis and George to let them race, because when Lewis and Valtteri were teammates, that wouldn't have been the case. It was always team orders, switch positions, we think will benefit. So it was strange to see the Merc team on the radio saying, yeah, you guys can race, because they hadn't really done that previous years. It was always Lewis comes first, Bottas comes second. But George performed some brilliant overtakes. He defended like an absolute champion, and that win was very, very long overdue for him. And it was just incredible for Mercedes to get a 1-2. I know Harry and Ono were very, very happy. And while we're on the topic, there is a little message from Ono from the wonderful place that is Australia. So yeah, this is what Ono had to say about the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Hey guys, obviously I couldn't make the pod because I'm still in Australia after coming here for my brother's wedding. What a 1-2 that was for the boys. I thought, I can't handle seeing Max win this and ruin Brazil for Lewis, but I think Lewis himself will be happy with the fact that George got that first win. But yeah, anyway, take care, Harry and Mel, and have a good pod.
As well as the Merc 1-2, of course, we had a McLaren double DNF. Why? I was so gutted. Lando looked so sad. It was Lando's birthday, and the man DNF'd on his own birthday. I was gutted. And to see Daniel not finish one of the last couple races he was going to have was also not very slay, as I would like to put it. Yeah, these things happen. I'm hoping they'll have the pace to pull out one really last exciting race for the season. But it was just such a shame. I was sat there in my bed and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But these things happen. Lando had a great qualifying. He qualified P4, I'm pretty sure, after having food poisoning. Obviously, Kevin put it on pole. Due to the weather, the flag was raced. The qualifying was flagged, and he secured pole, which was just nuts. Fair play to him, but unfortunately he got taken out, which was a bit of a shame. But again, these things happen. I don't really particularly know what much else there is really to say about the Brazilian Grand Prix, because there's been a lot of things that have happened since the race. So, for example, I was looking over some statistics earlier before filming this, and if George outscores Lewis in this last race, George Russell will become the third ever teammate to outscore Lewis Hamilton, with the first being Button and the second being Rosberg. Which, after how many years Valtteri and Lewis were teammates, If George can do that, I think that would be an incredible personal achievement for him. Not so in the sense of they're competitive and rivals, just in the sense of healthy competition to keep each other, like pushing each other to their best. So it will be interesting going into this weekend to see if George can succeed on that. We also had an incident within the Grand Prix when Max was asked if he could not overtake Fernando to swap places with Checo, because second place is still yet to be decided. Going into Abu Dhabi, we are seeing Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez go in on completely equal points of 290. And Perez could have done with the extra points. However, Max did not give the place to Checo for the reasoning of he knows, I think he said something about he knows what he did. And he is referring to Monaco because there have been a lot of videos circling from Perez's Monaco qualifying where apparently he had gone onto the throttle, he tapped it into the corner, therefore he span, ended the qualifying while Max was on a flying, and Max felt as if Checo had sabotaged his race. And Monaco was that many months ago that what doesn't sit right with me is the fact that he has had so many months to speak about it and air his concerns, but he must have chosen not to. So that is something I don't agree with Max doing that. I think it was really childish. Like, your championship is wrapped up, your constructor's title is wrapped up. However, you need to help your teammate, because your teammate for the last 2 years has defended for you, overtaken for you, swapped positions with you so that you could win a title. It was only fair that because there wasn't anything at stake for you in this race, that you swap positions. So I wasn't a big fan of how things like that had played out, which was a shame to see Max like that, because I know he can be much better. He just was not the bigger person in that situation. And I do hope him and Red Bull have had talks, because they can't risk, if they want to fight for more and more championships, they can't risk threatening those opportunities over little disputes like that, because that's what's going to ruin their chances of fighting for titles. One thing that I did want to say is, for those who haven't seen yet on social media, Lewis organised a whole dinner and picked up the bill for the entire grid. And Lando had been taking photos of it. I'm pretty sure Daniel did too, as kind of a one big last hurrah and a thank you towards Seb for everything he's done, and as well as the thank you dinner as we go into Abu Dhabi weekend. We're seeing tribute helmets for Seb, which it doesn't feel real in a sense. So for context, for those who be like, oh my god, Mel's appeared out of nowhere, what does she know? My dad raised me on F1. When I was a baby, I'm sure there's photos somewhere, 2004, I'd be sat with my dad. Arguably sometimes I was sat like this, which is a bit questionable, but he raised me on F1. And when we went into lockdown, F1 was one of the first sports that kind of really came back to life. And it really got me and my dad closer. It helped us through lockdown, having each other. And it's now fueling the point where I'm currently in uni studying media production, because my goal, for those who don't know, is to produce social media content for F1 teams or F2, just motorsport in general, particularly Formula. And it just feels so strange that it felt strange the whole time knowing that Seb is going. But then what also feels strange now is Mick is also going. It's the last race of the season approaching, and now Mick's going. He didn't even have Mick has a helmet tributing Seb because he thought he'd be coming back next season, and he's not. It's just so unfortunate, but there's so many beautiful driver tributes on the helmets for Seb, but we're losing a handful of people who have really shaped F1, from those who have watched it since Seb started his career, from those who have joined along the way, and for those who have managed to squeeze it in time just for the end. And I feel like it's going to be really, really emotional and really tough to watch towards the end. But obviously when one door closes, another door leading to many, many opportunities will open. And Seb has Instagram now, so it won't be the last that we hear from him. But yeah, overall, thank you for listening to me talk a little bit about the Brazilian Grand Prix, a little bit about the drama of F1, and a little sprinkle into what's to come this weekend. This was just my little kind of roundup. We'll all be reunited for Abu Dhabi, and then if you check us out on TikTok, I have taken full control and I will be TikToking a lot. And hopefully when the next season rolls around, we will be having live reactions. We tweet during the practices, the qualies, the race. So if you haven't, drop us a follow because we'd really appreciate it. And I will see you with my co-hosts for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.